It's normal. It's normal. In a low carbohydrate state, you're basically your body's not relying on it's a protective mechanism. If your T3 and TSH and T4, all they come down. They come down. They naturally come down. And that's a protective thing for your muscles because you don't have enough sugar anymore. So it comes down. You're not, remember, what we call the metabolic rate is basically glycogen storage capacity, is glucose's energy through complex 1 in the mitochondria. So that's what we're really talking about. But once that is down regulated and you actually do it using free fatty acid, that's a different state of affairs. Your system you can actually produce massive amounts of energy coming in, but that has to be down, because if it's not down, you'll start catabolizing your muscles. That it's a protective mechanism. It's like that peripheral resistance is a protective mechanism, to conserve the sugar for the brain and for the red blood cells and for those other tissues that need it, the demand driven. But it's the same thing with it's a protective mechanism for the muscles. And you get over time a translocation of glycogen stores in the muscle and fat stores. They move closer to where the triple geared system works of energy production into the filaments. They move closer to those filaments to basically provide that energy, the ATP. So that's what actually happens. That is fat adaptation over time. So, and this is a fat adaptation. So you get the translocation of those energy substrates in the muscles. You get these changes in the thyroid sort of at this lower grade that comes down, which is muscle protective to prevent catabolism because you're using a different source of energy. But free fatty acid goes up, so the other mechanisms of energy go up. And that's what's supposed to happen. You've shifted to a different fuel, so that's a normal thing. The only time you have to concern yourself is when T3 comes down, but TSH goes up. That's hypothyroidism. That's where you've got a problem. That does not happen in a low carbohydrate state. It never happens. Unless you've got some derangement you haven't sorted out. But generally speaking, these come down in lockstep because it's a protective thing for the muscles, so you don't catabolize them because you've shifted from sugar to fats and ketones. So you have to protect the muscles because, there's a certain amount of sugar that can come off glycerol, but not enough, just enough to cover the demand driven. So then the body would have to find this is why, if you take a look at a vagoon that's actually consuming a lot of carbohydrates and very little fat, their TSH, their T3 all go very high. But also if they're not getting enough energy in terms of sugar, they start catabolizing their muscles like mad. I mean, this is well known. This was known by Walter Kempner in 1930s, the German scientist that actually did the low fat, procedure because he didn't know about the keto diet. So this is well known, understood. That's why he recommended they eat more. He actually whipped them to make sure that they had enough in order to prevent the catabolism. But you can only sustain it for so long. He only recommended 1 year, no more. The vegans do it for more than 1 year and they really fall apart at that stage. So yeah, for them to go, oh, my metabolic rate's way up there, yeah. So you're aging faster, you're cell dividing as a consequence, and at the same time, you're basically catabolizing your tissue. Fantastic. Go Vagoon, go Vagoon. It's just nonsense. Most centenarians are running this lower grade of T3 and TSH, which is what is ancestral, and basically is less damaging to the body. So all this nonsense about metabolic rate is more related to glycogen usage. So if you can't access fat, then your metabolic rate comes down. And, as a consequence, and that comes down for the simple fact because you don't have the capacity, you don't have any other energy source. But when you actually access fat, that doesn't happen. It goes through the roof. You've got shitloads of energy being released because you can access it, and you've got a different sort of energy. So, it's a dynamic system. I know a lot of people look at it in a very reductionist way because that's how we've been taught to think in a very reductionist way, but it doesn't serve us well. It actually confuses us. But when we understand these dynamics, certain things adjust as other things are coming into operation. And when those things don't come into operation, other things go back in the other direction. So you can think of it as a swinging between one state or another, you know. So very interesting when you look at the physiology. If you really want to understand some of the stuff when it comes to the low fat stuff, I did a video with Pim Johnson on hers. It was the first one. If you go into my playlist, the first one that I actually discussed that issue, and I go through it thoroughly.